Hello, fabulous fans and superstars of my dear friend Nadiya Shah. I am Yuriria Robles and I welcome you to the predictions for each sign for the month of January 2026. Happy 2026 to everyone. Also, happy birthday to Capricorns and Aquarians celebrating this month. Let's begin with a general introduction to the most important astrological conditions. The Sun's transit through Capricorn implies the influence of Saturn, which is currently traversing the last 4 degrees of Pisces this month. This leads us to articulate and establish situations that provide us with security, if not materially, at least emotionally. This is due to the fact that Jupiter is in Cancer, ruled by the Moon, and therefore emotional tides are highly amplified. If we add the fact that it's in a square aspect with Chiron in Aries, it suggests that impulsive actions and impatience cause harm, and what's more, it brings back memories of what has deeply hurt us in the past. The solution lies in understanding that the consequences of our actions and those of others don't take others into account. It's important to recognize that our desires and passions drives us, and we rarely realize collateral damage. If we accept this, then we create space to find understanding and accept what happened. In other words, it wasn't personal, and only from this perspective can forgiveness be achieved. Furthermore, it didn't just happen once, as many times as we remember it, it hurts us again. That's why it's wise to bring emotional order to this month, accepting that what happened taught us a lesson in humanity and empathy for others. Also, with this situation, which is both pleasant and difficult, we can't learn to use free will decide whether we choose to enjoy what we have or lament as if it were still happening. We can even teach others that it's possible to learn from mistakes and accept them. This movement is valid even when the Sun moves into Aquarius, since they share the same ruling planet, Saturn, although here the energy becomes more active and direct. In any case, those Aquarians celebrating their birthdays this month will have the goal of unresolved emotional issues. On the other hand, the Sun, Venus, and Mars meet in a close conjunction from the first of the month, and by the seventh it is exact. Since it is in the sign of Capricorn, both our desires and our actions impose a precise goal. It is the time for clear and fixed purposes, with all their initial, intermediate, and final steps. Regarding communication, the conjunction of Mercury with the Sun, Venus, and Mars in Capricorn begins the month with a normal energy as New Year's resolutions are being fulfilled. However, since the Mars and Sun cycle begins, as I explained, this signifies the start of an action plan that will last 780 days, to be precise, until the 21st of March of 2028. This means that during this time we can set very specific goals, even if the objective is initially quite vague. We need to take physical, material, and systematic steps to achieve that objective. We have this time to do so. And thanks to Venus and Mercury, this also includes our desires and our thoughts, which will become clear and precise starting on January 7th. As we continue to grapple with the final part of the Saturn-Neptune cycle in Pisces, which has a very specific task that is to accomplish regarding closing the emotional process, the perception of altered states of consciousness, and the imagination that opened up in 2011. We can conclude that it's not about forgetting everything, but rather about gathering the experiences, lessons, and purposes to the extent that we've come, and preserving that imagination, especially that emotional awareness, as much as possible. From now on, well, from mid-February onward, to be specific, it will no longer be about emotional work, but rational and spiritual work, free from emotions. Not because emotions will disappear, but because they will cease to be paramount. This is to say, it will no longer be about rescuing our inner child, whether they suffer or not. We will focus on the capacity to reason, to choose what is intelligent even if it hurts, and to do what the mind dictates. So the good news is that the objectives must be clear and coherent. The difficult thing is recognizing the harshness, the coldness, and the disregard for feelings, not only on a personal level, but even on a global level. This will be even more pronounced when the transpersonal planets are in fire or air elements. These are ideal for nurturing ideas, theories, and philosophies that uphold an ideal, such as the philosophy of the Templars or the Crusaders, or even the philosophy of Don Quixote or the Japanese samurai. Therefore, one must ask oneself, what do I need to reach that place free from emotional baggage of the past as much as possible? And one must free oneself from debts, from the physical burden of carrying anger and resentment from the past. So January brings this consideration of setting something specific to one's goals, for example, losing weight. Yes, but how many kilos? What am I going to do precisely? Does what I'm eating move me closer or further from my goal? In general, what do I do at every moment, delaying the achievement of my goal, or does it bring me closer? Then I become aware of whether I'm moving towards my goals closer or further away. Now, the full moon in Cancer is the most powerful of the year since the moon rules this sign. Furthermore, it's accompanied by Jupiter, which intensifies emotions and makes us even more anxious about security, certainty, and close relationships. That makes us feel good. Obviously, not everyone experiences it the same way with the moon in Cancer or Jupiter in Cancer because it depends on our relationship with our body and our emotions, especially feelings and themes that the moon represents. That is, if I have a moon that makes me feel that anger is comforting, however contradictory it may seem, then that's really what I'm going to seek. And it will be amplified by the moon in Cancer, which craves affection, protection, containment, comfort, and nourishment. Diets won't be very viable at this time because the nourishment needed is affection. And if those conditions aren't present, then food is more readily available. So don't despair. We are talking about a 6 month period. And with that, we can understand that it is about truly seeking what we need to feel secure. Of course, during this lunation, Jupiter conjunction Chiron complicates the situation. There's a wound that comes from our past. We are essentially a part of our parents, even though we inherit their capacity, their characteristics in a blended way. It's difficult to recognize that we are no longer talking about them, but ourselves. These emotional conditions repeat the story of the past, requiring wisdom, acceptance, and above all, an attitude of forgiveness towards what happened. Our parents, grandparents, or whoever acted as our primary caregiver didn't do what hurt us because they genuinely wanted to harm us. On the contrary, they didn't know. Sometimes their own hearts were focused on the past and they reacted from that place or from their own desires, obsessions, or beliefs. So the act wasn't necessarily personal. The essential requirement for understanding our current situation is that it contains an element of insecurity, but this is the prerequisite that leads us to something better. Therefore, it will be difficult to move forward, especially starting next month when Saturn and Neptune definitely move into Aries. We'll talk about it later, but for now, we need to understand that this painful situation happened the way it did. We need to teach others to understand and support themselves so they don't suffer the same pain we did through forgiveness and wisdom to overcome this uncomfortable situation we are in now. The new moon on January the 18th is very interesting because it's in harmony with Uranus, still in Taurus, and in harmony with Saturn and Neptune. This emphasizes the conditions for organizing feelings and imagination with material goals and concrete achievements, arranging them by order of execution and importance. Even there's an element of doubt, it's essential. To achieve something better, we have to act. Now let's review the signs. It's recommended to consider your ascendant sign as well as your natal moon sign and not just your sun sign. Considering these three perspectives will help us better understand what's happening to us. Although ideally, you should consult a professional astrologer to synthesize who you are and what awaits you. Happy holidays, and may 2026 be a splendid year for everyone. Aries. For you, January's work consists of recognizing all the effort it will take to make a decision to achieve the social and professional goals that the conjunction of the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars is now imposing on you. Even the new moon on January the 3rd will help you define your path by clarifying what lies ahead. It certainly won't be an easy period, nor will the decision be easy, because taking the time to define a goal isn't your habit. You prefer to do everything at the moment before inspiration fades. However, even though it's a challenging transit, it will give you more energy to set your goals. But for you in particular, it involves the process of deciding and persisting with those goals without burning out at the first hurdle. So recognize or remember that this isn't a sprint that can be resolved in a flash, but a 780-day marathon. Now remember that the cycle of emotional review you've been undergoing since 2011 is coming to an end. This cycle, accentuated by Saturn's influence, has compelled you to organize your thoughts for the past 2.5 years. That period is now concluding. Although you still have January and 15 days of February to absorb the lesson of prioritizing your compassion, of understanding what feelings are, even if you fear them, and that you can now focus on significant spiritual development because you understand not only others, but above all yourself. This new process will last 2.5 years, during which Saturn's influence will ask you to be less impulsive and more spiritual, seeking enlightenment and deciding that you are a warrior who will fight for that ideal. And in this way, I believe you can navigate life in a more coherent manner. This is also a period when the last of the unexpected things in your value system still linger due to the presence of Uranus, but I don't think it will be complicated. On the one hand, you should have been doing business with technology, but the unexpected, the instability of your own values or the money you earn will be easier to deal with later. Right now, focus on finishing that business you learned and on those new values as well. Now, the square or difficult angle between your goals and your own impatient yet active personality clashes with the increased desire for security, affection, family, and comfort that you feel at home. You don't want to move, not even jokingly. In fact, it hurts precisely because you've been on a 9-year journey where moving has been painful, where there's no way to advance because if you stay put, it hurts, and if you move forward, it hurts too. So growth isn't easy. In that sense, it's about striking a balance between comfort and impatience to achieve those goals. As I said at the beginning, it's about the 780 days where you have to take concrete steps and measures, which is very important because this energy only focuses once a year, precisely when the sun begins to rise or advance on its path towards light, the increase of light. The friends or groups you have close by will continue to help you as soon as this process begins and will create very friendly situations with you later on. This makes it likely that you'll already be familiar with the philosophy that will help you form new beliefs that will carry you forward for at least 4 years until the end of the decade. As for the moon in Cancer, It accentuates the search for security and what you need to put in order so that anger and impatience don't get the better of you. Let's say it's difficult because sometimes the urge to stay put wins because I'm very comfortable and in my current situation, but it's also true that I'm restless and can't stand it any longer. I'm moving and feeling uncomfortable, but the key is to have clear goals. Why would you move? What would you achieve? That's the essence of this January. Congratulations and keep going. Taurus, from the perspective of your ruling planet Venus as it enters Capricorn alongside the Sun and following the superior conjunction that occurred in December, it's about focusing your desires, thoughts, and actions towards a specific goal, what we know as purpose. That's why you are setting goals this month. Now, we have these planets close to us, which signify what I just mentioned, the strength to establish the energy of purpose. Be as precise as possible. Establish small steps and clear methods so you can move forward in what you want to achieve. Also think about what you want to do it. What are you going to sacrifice? What are you going to discipline yourself in? That's precisely what it's about. Because Capricorn energy at this time makes it easy for you and achieving your goals won't be a problem, especially if you focus on higher education, legal achievements, or travel with specific learning objectives. If you achieve what you set out to do, you will gain enough knowledge or experience to attain a professional or social position in 780 days. You will demonstrate what you learn now. Everything in Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which influences our goals. However, its conjunction with Neptune presents the first challenge because Neptune has the effect of blurring the lines between what we want to achieve and what we need to accomplish. Furthermore, they are in confrontation with Jupiter in a difficult aspect, which also dominates Saturn and Neptune. In simple terms, this means there is a struggle between your thoughts and beliefs versus what makes you feel comfortable, at ease, and secure. You need to correct your beliefs and also those friends who for a long time, since 2011, were somewhat artistic, bohemian, and even hippie-like, are finishing their process and aren't helping you to achieve anything in the future. So keep in mind that you need to close that cycle. Save your imagination to fuel your new goals, but it's time to start considering letting go of dependence, codependence, and victimization so you can enter a much more concrete period, which you will understand very well, being an earth sign. Furthermore, Uranus transit through your sign, now in its final degrees, invites you to conclude the revolution you've experienced within yourself and in your way of acting. You have until April to complete this renewal process. This experience of novelty will help you find new values because what you appreciate now will have to become new relationships, tastes, and resources. So talk thoroughly with your siblings, especially during the full moon, cousins, and neighbors, so you feel secure, but more importantly, so you can agree to let them know that even though you're afraid, you are going to move and you are not going to stay in the same place. You've achieved something in the same place, but to achieve all the goals you are planning, you have to start moving, even if it's uncomfortable. The new moon on January 18th will even help you clarify your goals. Remember that in addition, your entire network of relationships is changing due to the presence of Pluto, which is supporting the transformation in the social and professional spheres. February will be easier and April even more so. You'll find that if you pay attention or if you overcome your fears of the formless and the undefined, you'll talk to many people and dare to make that transformation. You are going to be very successful, so for now, prepare yourself mentally to decide to move before you're forced to. Do it, I'm sure you will succeed. Gemini, the fear you felt about moving during Uranus transit through Taurus represents the effort to overcome your fear of stillness. You discovered that even in immobility, unexpected things happen. So, waiting for the right moment without fear is the most significant achievement of this transit. You have overcome your suspicions of fears of being immobilized or being stuck in a place that would prevent you from having freedom of movement. Because if there is anything that immobilizes us, it is precisely our unspoken fears. From April onward, you will experience extraordinary agility and freedom, which may last for 7 years, and that is good news. For now, this period is ending, so continue settling down and realizing that your fears are only partly personal, partly inherited from your family, primarily from gestation and early childhood, and only partly stems from your current circumstances. So, the challenge this month stems from Mercury's entry into Capricorn on January the 2nd, joining the Sun and Venus. The new moon in the 18th further strengthens this group of planets in Capricorn, prompting you to set precise goals aimed at personal transformation. This will manifest as closing cycles, negotiations, and reorganizing shared resources to move forward. It's not necessarily about ending things, but about giving them a purpose. Therefore, business plans and clarifications regarding commitments and debts are valuable, especially concerning your own resources and those shared with your partner. Make the effort to keep your finances in order, maintain your professional standing, and bring peace to your home life. Clarify what you want to negotiate with your partner or associates, what you will share with them, what you will produce, and how you will achieve this concretely. Carefully study the international situation and the needs of others to move forward. This will allow you to negotiate from a more informed perspective. You will find friends who will help you starting next month to imagine or inspire you so that you can achieve that movement you so deeply desire. Because the emotional cycle that has held you back for so many years is ending. Now, I don't want you to forget the lesson of understanding and accepting your feelings because that enriches your life. Now is the time to develop your awareness and, if you wish, to explore new philosophies and beliefs that you need to establish. On the other hand, take advantage of Jupiter in Cancer, which will remain there for the first 6 months of the year, but above all, it demands balance with these endings. You're earning money even though sometimes you'd rather be enjoying time with your friends. Your friends, on the other hand, didn't cooperate, became impatient, or frankly hurt you because of your desire to grow. But if you have clear goals now, it's time to make commitments. You can't just focus on earning money, as I explained. You have to balance it with managing the money you earn or have invested with others. And above all, consider what your partner or business associate values so you can try to understand and enrich the relationship emotionally. So close the chapter on social and professional commitments that taught you so much because now you're free to do other things. Now, with the full moon, this conflict between the need for security versus the urgency to actively move forward specific goals will intensify. There's no escaping this, and until the planets settle in the new signs, you must tolerate a certain degree of uncertainty. This uncertainty will only increase your anxiety, fueled by the need for greater certainty in what you're doing. Be patient, clarify your goals, and heal your ability to move forward. And above all, to forgive friends, even your own hopes, which may not be what you thought they were. New friends will arrive who will encourage you to achieve incredible things, but you'll need clarity. That's why I emphasize the importance of precise goals so you don't get lost in the fog of fantasy. Remember that the spiritual goal is indeed important, So becoming a warrior of the spirit, as I've mentioned before, is essential for now. Cancer. The year begins with a great benefactor in your sign, and it will remain so for 6 months, including the best or most powerful full moon on January the 3rd. Balance your need for security and belonging with your desires, thoughts, and actions to improve your relationship and partnerships. The good news is that it brings expansion and strengthens your need for security and belonging, as well as for affection and support. The bad news or the difficult part is that it doesn't allow you to lose weight very easily, precisely because the need for security can be satisfied with anything that makes you expand, since Jupiter's mission is exactly that expansion. So don't worry. Now balance this with the level headedness of your partner who asks for specific goals. In other words, you can recognize your thoughts and desires due to the presence of Mercury and Venus in Capricorn, along with Mars. So organize your concrete actions into short term goals. Your partner or business associates can help you establish this. You had the agreement of Saturn and Neptune to organize your feelings. But basically, what you have to do now is let them go or close everything that was left unresolved in the emotional world. Turn to faith, the conviction of a higher plane that surrounds us. Regarding the artistic world, it's not necessarily to close the activity, but rather you will now focus on your professional and social development, and not so much on finding inspiration or studying, and that will be an effort for you. It officially begins on February 14th. You still have a month and a half to close everything that you cultivated during the 2.5 years that have passed, even since 2011 with Neptune in Pisces. So your emotions have to be organized. And with that, I ask you to let go of resentment, both professionally and socially, for what happened and what didn't. The hurt is probably the effect of events that weren't directed against you and you were collateral damage. You can now see things from other perspectives and let go of personal resentment, understanding that this is truly a worthwhile lesson to learn. As a Cancer, you feel safer at home, protected and sheltered, while the outside world is risky, and warning you that from now on you won't be able to avoid entering that world you perceive as risky and difficult. Now I ask you to approach it with faith in something higher that protects you, something that you've already studied and know. Come on, you're ready. Everything that happens in relation to your partner and what they tell you is simply the voice of the universe urging you to set clear boundaries and order in your personal plans and what you share with them. Furthermore, you can't help but be generous with them, especially with Jupiter in Cancer. This is a struggle between sacrificing security and moving courageously towards your goals. This is what marks the first month of the year and consequently the rest of 2026. The new moon in Capricorn emphasizes the importance of communicating with your partners or significant other to set clear goals. Uranus concluding its transit through Taurus will likely stop bringing in those unorthodox or unusual friends who made you nervous because they disrupted your established order and your hopes for a stable, unchanging world. We must understand that even in the natural world and even in the realm of Cancer, the seashore, things aren't truly stable. Just as the tide rises and falls, it brings new challenges with each passing period, and this is precisely what's happening in the human world. At this time, focus on intelligently closing cycles so you can move forward freely. Regarding the new, remember that the most important thing is to free yourself from resentment. Especially take advantage of the new moon on the 18th, and with this, you can definitely end the need to take revenge or to remain sheltered in your shell and not move forward. It will not be possible. You will be forced to do it for many years to come. Leo, with the Sun, our star, at its lowest point in its orbit, you have no choice but to set precise and concrete work goals that will propel you toward the light and the achievement of your own objectives. During the first 6 months of the year, Jupiter is in Cancer, and with the full moon, January 3rd, in its ruling sign, you will have to confront the fear of not being seen. You fear that if you don't show yourself enough, you won't be noticed, and that protecting yourself isn't in your best interest. This is the time to experience the security and protection of the institutions where you work, and to understand that to grow there, you must adapt to daily work and plans and projects. Wait until July the 1st, when Jupiter in Leo will present the scenario you've been waiting for 12 years. So take advantage of the first 6 months of the year to adapt to everything required of you at work so that you can broaden everyone's horizons. Now, it's important because you become aware of others' feelings and ideas or beliefs can manifest for the benefit of all, even in legal matters. But you can also pursue professional studies, healing what you can, accepting what is without demanding that you have to know everything. That's why studying something specifically that supports health, healing, and well being is important. Remember that we all have feelings, and what needs to grow within you is your generosity, it's your birthright. You need to close the emotional cycles that have been open for 13 years, especially the last 2.5 years, when Saturn accompanied Neptune in Pisces. For you, this signifies sharing resources with your partner. Neptune's presence during all that time dissolved or should have erased or at least problematized who owned what. Saturn in the last 2.5 years has done the work of containing the drain of resources and leading you to a more ordered place, particularly as I explained in your partnership. Furthermore, your partner now has much more power and will continue to do so for the next 20 years. So you are the one who must assume and share that power within the partnership and not relinquish it. It's not about letting your partner boss you around, much less getting involved in power struggles, but about accepting that you need to transform your relationship. You'll find much more powerful, much stronger people who attract you and who will transform how this relationship will be from now on. But you have to stop this drain on your resources and break the emotional cycle that consumed a good part of your energy, preparing yourself so that in February, and I'll be more specific about this, you'll have the strength to achieve new understanding. Perhaps you'll prepare yourself spiritually with more seriousness and order to heal some of the religious philosophy you may have. This could include beliefs about faith, advanced knowledge, and higher education, such as doctorates, diplomas, specializations, or even new dealings with the law and the courts. Fortunately, this will come very easily to you and won't cause you any conflict. Regarding the new moon in Capricorn on the 18th, it further emphasizes the desire and will to achieve things in your work life so you can evolve during 2026. Remember that these goals are valid not only this year, but will also be reviewed in 2027 to begin a new period in 2028. The challenge lies in the work areas you are accustomed to because this new vision is precisely different and requires adjustments to both the goals you set daily with your colleagues and the growth desired by the institutions where you work. Therefore, you must be strongly committed to these new ideas, new knowledge, or training objectives. Established method, while certainly being proven, needs to be adapted, and the goals must take into account the risks involved. Otherwise, the fluctuations in your professional and social life will end soon, not immediately, but at the beginning of April as Uranus moves into Gemini. This will bring you many different friends, which will be very satisfying because the new ideas will resonate with them and you'll enjoy a new way of relating your partner. The new moon on the 18th will emphasize the importance of considering the feelings of others, especially resentments which aren't so easy to manage simply by applauding or acknowledging them. An effort of compassion and understanding is necessary. Congratulations. Virgo, at the beginning of the month, your ruling planet Mercury moves from Sagittarius to Capricorn. This transformation indicates that despite the optimism at home or the wonderful or grand plans you may have made, which are difficult to define because you can no longer clearly articulate them, with the Sun in Capricorn and accompanied by Venus and Mars, you can now focus on all the creative goals, skills, or abilities you will achieve through practice. Consider how much time you will spend in the workshop, practicing, rehearsing, or creative study so that you can have a very clear understanding of what you will accomplish. The condition is that you receive the protection and security of your friends through Jupiter in Cancer and in addition to the presence of the full moon. You need to go see them to nourish yourself with their affection, their security, and the confidence they have in you. For many years, it makes sense that you acted prematurely or out of sync with the times and it didn't achieve what you wanted. Now, the advance of Saturn and Neptune in early February will force you to overcome those doubts, and you must at least conserve enough of Jupiter's energy during the first 6 months of the year so that you have the strength and discipline to achieve your goals and understand why you are creating. Even if it's about your children, what do you want to raise them to be? To be independent, to be joyful, because happy is a very general concept. If you know them well, you know their skills, and if you don't ask them, it's not that they have absolute certainty about who they are. Perhaps even astrologically, a consultation on that could help you, but it's about knowing their abilities very well so you can help them with special classes with a teacher or be teaching or showing them yourself. We already know by example what they can achieve and where they are going spiritually, which is very important. It's very different with romantic relationships because setting precise boundaries is complex. But there are ways to help you understand that love is a serious commitment that needs to be adjusted to daily life and that you have that commitment as long as you have that intention. For example, to communicate, not to leave things unresolved, not to let time slip by, not to go days without speaking, or to demand or criticize each other, which is easy to do, but not entirely advisable in a romantic relationship. So it's about you growing and improving yourself in a romantic relationship, even before marriage or in a more informal relationship. Let's say it could become formal, but for now you have to cultivate the most solid foundation. Then, if you like the same things, doing the same things, eating similar food, or going to the same places, well, there are a series of agreements that need to be established. This is the moment I was telling you about because on the work side, there's a new approach, a new team philosophy that I've already mentioned in other broadcasts, which requires acting like a community. That is, they are not individuals but entities with a new philosophy which takes shape throughout the year, especially from February onwards, and even more so in April, where you can understand that new ways of thinking and organizing from a work perspective will emerge. Congratulations. Libra, your ruling planet, Venus, is in Capricorn during the first part of January, which is very challenging because it forces you to acknowledge the concrete realities that need to occur in your home, where you live, or in relationship to your ancestors, so that you can fulfill your dream of having that ideal partner. We return to the point, as on other occasions, that the ideal partner only exists in our imagination or in our minds, and in reality, it has to be that version of ourselves that is the best version, but that accepts others as they are. Here, there are very specific goals that you have to achieve in your home: what needs fixing, what needs improving. What actions will you take there? What who do you need to talk to, and what specific things are necessary to achieve? In terms of growth, consolidation, and group principles, you certainly have to consider the social and professional growth that the first half of the year offers, and especially January, because it will be accompanied by the full moon in Cancer. This is a very powerful moon that compels you to consider feelings that aren't always pleasant and that need to be balanced with the concrete and precise goals you must achieve in your home. Furthermore, you must consider the wound your partner has been dealing with for a long time, and you must learn that you weren't hurt intentionally. That is not personal, but rather a consequence of the circumstances and those involved in what happened. In other words, your ideal led you to do what you did, and your partner was driven by their adventure, their need for conquests from your perspective. These desires, beliefs, and thoughts caused a wound that manifests itself more in the relationship or even within your partner or associates themselves. Now comes a rebuilding of that area, which is frankly a challenge because it will require grounding the ideal of partnership that you have maintained until now. Remember that the ideal is just that, something that doesn't exist in this world. We all have flaws and qualities, as I already told you, including yourself. On the other hand, the lingering energy of Uranus in Taurus is very helpful, especially to your Venus, your ruling planet, so that you can close very important cycles. These are emotional cycles that were open, or financial ones that were chaotic, and which you can now address from the perspective of your creative development. The transformation is coming, especially in how you think about your creative development, the philosophy or theory that supports it. And even if it involves children, the relationship with them will also be very important. They will be very important to you and you to them. The same goes for intense love, which for now will have a very special relationship with you and probably with foreign countries or higher education. This could come from university or from people who work in the courts. It's not about nurturing your ideal and isolating yourself again, leaving you searching for it forever, but about conveying to yourself that the ideal resides within you, that you are the one who holds within you the relationship you seek, and then sharing it with the other person from that complete humanity with all its flaws, imperfections, qualities, and gifts to others. Congratulations. Scorpio. As a fixed sign, you are invited, if not obligated, to transform your family, social, and even professional relationships, as well as your romantic relationships and, of course, your relationship with yourself. Because Pluto in Aquarius has to shake up your fixed ideas, you already have experience with Uranus in Taurus, which shook up your romantic relationships. I definitely can't deny that it may have meant the end of your relationships that were very orderly, very routine or comfortable, and now they couldn't continue in the same way. With Uranus there, you couldn't, no matter how much you wanted to, get used to the new relationship, but it did leave you with the idea that you need to be freer and less possessive when it comes to romantic relationships or partnerships. This possessiveness has to be transformed into a desire to achieve more precise communications in terms of inviting people to work toward concrete goals, especially your siblings, cousins, and neighbors, so that you can achieve a rectification of your mindset, above all, so that you no longer think in terms of who pays you or who has more power, but in terms of what you are going to achieve. So in 780 days, and to be precise, by April 28, you can improve your communication skills, for example, by improving your writing, public speaking, abilities, very specific things you need to learn, skills you can then deploy at work. Above all, greater mental clarity. For now, your work needs healing. Perhaps you haven't settled into all 7 of these issues, which are about to be eliminated in April, but with Jupiter in Cancer, new possibilities develop are coming, and this will be easy for you to incorporate. Even the powerful full moon in Cancer, due to its ruling planet, brings or reaffirms new knowledge that helps you balance what you need to achieve. You'll be able to understand which obsessions, beliefs, or desires might influence your actions, allowing you to think with precision. Something concrete might even be important. A precise goal with chapters, introduction, conclusion. Use it as an example, an allegory, so you can create something with this energy. The completion of Saturn and Neptune's transit through the house of your children, love, and creativity closes a period where emotion was important, and for you, very simple, because love was enough. What you learned from what happened might have taught you that this is indeed the case. Finish organizing it, channeling it to move forward, because now what will matter is that you develop work situations that have the purpose of inspiring you and the world toward an ideal of growth, especially spiritual one, although it is true that it also involves a certain combative feeling about things. It's about being warriors to achieve something daily, especially in the areas of work, health, and also in the personal area. In the area of health, so that you can bring order, it has to do with a new vision and opening yourself to new ideas that refresh how fixed your thinking and especially your heart can be. The new moon on the 18th, as I explained, will help you bring those ideas. Remember to divide your time and energy so your thinking can be renewed, and let go of the old and the attachments that are no longer useful. Of course, you can. Sagittarius, with your ruling planet Jupiter in Cancer, the resources you share with your partners or spouse are growing. This will be highlighted by the full moon in Cancer, the most powerful of the year, due to its ruling planet. Helps you see how to increase these shared resources. However, you need to offer a business plan, a set of very precise objectives regarding your own resources and what you want to achieve in detail, so that you can work with it and not get lost or confused by the big ideas or inspirations that are your nature. You need to value these plans and follow them to the letter. Even the new moon on January the 18th emphasizes those specific money making projects that you need to monetize now. Remember that you have 780 days to achieve this. With Jupiter in Cancer for at least the first 6 months of the year, you must consider that these plans cannot jeopardize the security of your partners or spouse, or at least take their security into account, because otherwise you won't have that security later on. Furthermore, this will emphasize the wounds you feel in your creativity, your children, and your relationships. In other words, don't get creative by risking resources or values, neither yours nor your partners. Partners, learn from past mistakes and don't gamble. It's time for orderly planning, not for playing dice with your resources or your partners. You have to wait until mid February to feel inspired by new creations, but the pressure to learn from the past loses, whether yours or those of your ancestors, has left a tremendous mark. A passion for gambling can block awareness, and the effects are felt by those close to you, including yourself and your children. Therefore, it's best to focus on healing your creativity, accepting that mistakes and inadequacies are part of human beings, and that the pursuit of practice and skill development always offers a window of opportunity for learning. Furthermore, you can become a great master of creativity and love. Saturn and Neptune are ending their transit through your home where you live and in relation to your family. This brings closure to emotional matters that have been unresolved since 2011, accepting what has happened, learning from the past, and above all, forgiving what occurred in order to move forward. For now, during the next 2.5 years, prepare yourself seriously. It may even be possible to monetize your creativity and have it appreciated by others, even if it's not perfect. From 2028 onward, you will establish yourself as a great creator if you persist in practicing and training. The key is to share your spiritual vision from now on. This is a commitment you must make to yourself. It's not about you winning or him winning, but about achieving all these goals. Give yourself the time to define them and begin to act on them. Now, from a thought perspective, new ideas are emerging, just beginning to take shape. Get ready. These are new philosophies, new beliefs, new ways of communicating. Use electronic media and artificial intelligence to unleash your creativity so you can imagine and present your achievements daily, ensuring they are valued and recognized as you desire that they transcend boundaries and reach large audiences. Of course, you can. Capricorn. This is the time of the year when you hold all power as the Sun, Mercury, starting on the second of the month, Venus and Mars in its annual conjunction with the Sun, ushering a very specific period of personal goals and achievements, which are your specialty. However, you must also consider what needs healing at home that has hurt you and achieve emotional satisfaction for your partner or associates. Strengthened by Jupiter in Cancer, the sign of growth. These goals must consider those who live at home, your origins as if it were an outstanding debt you owe to your ancestors, a matter that will not diminish. Begin healing the situation now with two essential things: forgiveness and your spiritual vision. You must understand that what happened wasn't personal, but rather something your grandparents or parents experienced, of which you were collateral damage. You must reclaim this with a new philosophy of justice, conquest, and the achievements that the new circumstances will bring. This isn't a short period. First, focus on these 2.5 years with the very clear goals for your own healing, and then develop a philosophy such as we are just humane, productive, or healing reflective. What can the clan you belong to recognizes as distinctive? Invite your partner to participate, at least in clarifying the values of your family group, the one you belong to. Regarding your relationship with your children, there is still some unfinished business to complete. For example, establishing a very important routine. The same applies to your romantic relationships. As for your creativity, this year, 2026, and for the next 2.5 ones, you need to bring order to your communication. The emotions you want to express must be addressed, and above all, you must overcome passive aggression, victimization, and exaggerated drama with siblings, cousins, and neighbors. You need to express yourself with greater sensitivity, but you certainly need to tone down the intensity. Now you have to start working perhaps as a freelancer, which isn't so easy for you because you'll be moving from one company to another or from one job to another. But you can achieve it if you consider freedom your goal. That's still to come around April. For now, you should appreciate everything you've accomplished with your creativity, your children, and your loved ones. Also, you have a new perspective on values. Remember that you have to earn money through technology, through things that create new ways of producing for yourself and for the people around you. I'm sure you will succeed. Aquarius, your ruling planet Saturn is still accompanying Neptune much more closely than in the past, and together they will enter Aries in mid-February. While this is happening, finish settling all your personal financial matters. These financial issues have been scattered for a long time, and expenses may have ballooned, but you've had to get them in order over the last 2.5 years. This is the final touch that truly ends this month, so you can move to the new work, learning to communicate and inspire others to strive daily for an ideal, whether it be of justice or spiritual beauty. This will be especially relevant in the coming years. For now, you need to list concrete material goals within the institutions where you work, considering your colleagues, their feelings, and above all, your attachment to the status quo, to the way things are done. It's about healing the fear of change and expanding into new work methods that achieve precise goals, rather than focusing solely on what has been done previously. Actually, you're afraid to acknowledge specific goals that only benefit you because you see yourself as a creator of collective solutions, especially now that Pluto is in your sign. However, the truth is that you need to confront your fears, observe what you're afraid of, and take concrete actions that help you overcome phobias and nightmares. A new era is coming and you need to adjust. Regarding creativity, you have to wait a while for it to become easier for you to be inspired by new things, especially when there's a need for a new way of communicating. For now, you need to end or face the fact that if you have communication problems, that it makes you uncomfortable or that something is missing. You now need to conquer a new way of communicating. The home renovations and surprising changes will also be over. You can move towards freeing your children and loved ones, as well as your own creativity. Remember that everything is guided by the transformation process that Pluto in Aquarius is beginning, and it asks you to be more flexible in your ideas in one on one relationships, that is, with partners and spouses, and especially in family and social relationships, which have already shifted. All of this implies that you adapt and make a team effort rather than issuing a series of orders that everyone will follow, no matter how intelligent you may seem. The new moon will accentuate these goals in the institutions where you work. On the other hand, the full moon on the 3rd will compel you to consider the people you work with daily. With them, you must address the communication gaps. Remember that this is an invitation to be humane, considerate, and humble when speaking with siblings, cousins, and neighbors. Support them in their doubts and share your knowledge with the wisdom of your intelligence. Congratulations. Pisces, your ruling planet Jupiter, currently in Cancer, brings you a harmony that you fully enjoy with your children and loved ones, as well as in your creativity. Even the full moon inspires you to feel secure and to recognize the emotional component of creating or sharing with your children and loved ones. However, your friends are asking you for specific goals to harness that creative productivity, whether it's organizing an exhibition, a publication, or a group, so that you can precisely share all that knowledge and the skills you possess with others. The challenge is to overcome the idea that you can't earn money with these skills. Over the next 2.5 years, starting February 15th, you will find enough energy to inspire you to share what you know and who you are through specific proposals and goals. This requires sufficient discipline, especially regarding budgeting and organizing values, so you can understand why what you express and create, or what you express in those creations, needs to be valued even by your children so they can appreciate it. When they are young, you have to make sure they finish each stage of their schooling all the way to their professional training in whatever field you want them to be, so they can be independent. That's how precisely I would ask of you both from a creative and loving perspective, providing security and loving support. There is a need to overcome resentment, to let go of painful memories that can affect your relationships, and above all, to enjoy love. You have to leave resentment behind. The wound is related to your own self worth. To overcome the feeling of nothing or everything or little or much, when what's essential is to recognize that you have achievements, qualities, and challenges because of who you are, not because of what was done to you in the past, since it was not personal. Every wound or pain was the result of the actions of others who only thought of themselves. So, freeing yourself from internalizing this pain is fundamental. Forgiveness is for liberation. It's something like a boomerang you give to yourself. It returns multiplied. This also marks the culmination of a renewal in your thinking, freeing you from a way of thinking that has become accustomed to repetitive patterns. Now, with situations brought about by siblings, cousins, and neighbors, you may have understood that the unexpected enriches your capacity to adapt. For now, either obey or enjoy the emotional growth that Jupiter offers you during the first 6 months of the year. Don't waste it and don't be afraid. Use reasoning to understand others, and above all, let them accept that you allow yourself to reason instead of just feeling and creating drama. Communicating with others will help you have faith that what you are doing is right. This will become clearer in April. Be patient. For now, don't be afraid of the fact that you have to reason and give concrete and clear explanations to others, including yourself. It's not enough to rely on intuitions or feelings or on what others have told you. Now you have to give reasons to yourself, even if it requires effort, so that you can harness the best of that energy and not get lost in ideas or demands coming from the outside. It's a growth process that the system is presenting to you. Happy 2026. See you soon.